What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Talk of the Tundra. We are coming back to you on Tuesday. You'll hear this Wednesday morning, but it is cut day, and we have reactions to some of those cuts and talk about Juwann Winfree, Jack Heflin. The Micah Abernathy agenda is thriving, at least for the next 24 hours, hopefully at least. But first things first, I'm joined today by my co-host Ti Windisch. Ty, how are you doing?
I'm good. I would be great if everyone listening, go ahead and click subscribe and rate and review. I forgot to tell you this before we went live. We have some reviews coming in. I
Ho
believe
ho
we have
ho!
one that I will make you read at the end of this pod on
All
air.
right,
So,
all right.
if you're looking to make Numac read, which is something he probably doesn't do enough, make sure to rate and review on Apple, or you can do Spotify at our great Discord form at gspn.info, or Apple Podcasts. We'll just find it. So thank you so much to everyone who's already listening, rating, and reviewing. We're obviously just getting started, but picking up steam here. Excited to chat about cut day. Some, I would say, minor surprises. I know your take last time we recorded was I don't want any big surprises. And I said,
Right.
hey, Dean Lowry. Dean Lowry, biggest shock of the day. Dean Lowry's still there. Dean
Yeah.
Lowry escapes. I think he was number 53. I'm kidding. But and if you're unaware, on the last pod, that was my if there had to be a super unexpected cut, no logic
Right.
behind it, clearly as based on it not happening. But
Right.
I want to start with your take on were you majorly surprised by anything coming out of Green Bay? Because it seemed like, not maybe consensus, although people had different ideas of what consensus was, but it
Right.
didn't seem like anything too stunning. But what did you think, Numac?
I didn't think there were any big surprises. Like everybody who was cut had the chance to get cut, right? Like there wasn't anybody who we figured as a shoe-in that got cut. Like when Brian Bulaga got cut, like that was not a relatively big surprise for where he was in his career and his role on the Packers. But this year's, I guess, cut class, if you want to go that route, didn't have any of those big surprises. The biggest, I guess, surprise, if you really even want to call it that, is rather maybe my prediction wasn't correct, is that they only rostered two running backs in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I really thought they're going to keep Goodson. I really thought they're going to keep Tyler Goodson, and they didn't. And instead, they didn't keep Patrick Taylor either. It was sort of about halfway through the day that Tyler Goodson got cut, and the sort of consensus around Twitter and in our Discord. Yes, join Discord, GSPN.info, fill out the form, please join. A lot of fun in there. But the reasoning that was sort of being circulated was that Goody really wants his um third running back to be a special teamer and a pass blocking running back, which is what Patrick Taylor is more so than Tyler Goodson. And so to see the end of the day roster not include him isn't, I'm not going to say concerning for special teams because hopefully they figure it out. But the fact that they cut somebody who was going to play special teams if he made the roster is interesting, I'll say.
Yeah, I thought, and Ty Summers was a couple days ago, right?
Yeah,
That one wasn't actually cut
he
day.
was, yeah, I think he was either late Sunday night or late Monday night.
Yeah, so we had known about that, but it is interesting to that point of a couple of guys who certainly that was Ty Summers' thing with special teams. And listen, I don't think anyone has any problems with the Packers diverging from what they used to do on special teams. Not saying the Ty Summers move is a bad move or the Patrick
Right.
Taylor, but it just is interesting, I think, to see a couple of guys who were tabbed as special teamers get cut. It certainly is possible that, if you listen to this a day or so after it posts, maybe the Packers have made a move to add another special teams player. I mean, there is
Yep.
in addition to assembling the practice squad on Wednesday, they could also, make another move with the 53. We will do another episode to update on anything that does happen like that later this week. But it's just interesting. I think for me, I would agree. Just the fact that are only two running backs maybe is the most surprising thing out of cut day. I know
Yep.
we talked a little bit about Amari Rodgers as a gadget player. He does make the roster. Maybe he picks up a little bit of that. Also, a guy in special teams, but less a gunner, I think, and more a receiver. Maybe who knows? I wouldn't think he'd be a gunner though.
A returner, not a receiver.
A returner, excuse me. Yeah.
Yep.
He is almost everything but a receiver. No, he's a receiver too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the receivers who don't make the cut, so to speak, are Juwann Winfree and Travis Fulgum. I thought this was interesting because those were, I guess, the two guys who we considered truly on the bubble that somewhat had the Rodgers endorsement for different reasons. Winfrey literally had it, and Fulgum is the vet, so to speak, at least in that bottom of the position group group of players. So what were your thoughts on the wide receiving room? Again, I don't think these two guys getting cut shocked anybody, but it was one of those, that was the talking point, especially for Winfrey, was, well, we're really hoping they communicated it better to 12 this time.
Right. And I think I might have been Peter Bukowski did the handshake meme, and it was Jake Kumaro and Juwann Winfrey, which is like, I really hope it's not that case so that we don't piss off.
Is he on
Aaron
the Bills
again.
yet? Do we know if the Bill? We won't know until tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll hear that Winfrey's with the Bills.
Yeah, that would probably be just too much of a likeness to Jake Kumaro. But no, I'm not too surprised with the receiver room. I'm not gonna say I disagree because I see the vision in the fact that if they're not keeping a third running back, then you keep Amari Rodgers to be that utility player like you had mentioned, the guy at the end arounds, reverses, this jet sweeps, stuff like that. That makes sense. Watching some film, Samori Toure. I'm gonna.
That's what we're going with for now.
We're going with Toure.
Please correct us if it's just Toure, but Toure seems to be what we're going with.
So I watched some film on Winfrey and Toure from the Chiefs game, and there was just some like little stuff that I think pushed Toure over the edge over Winfrey. Whether or not that's fair, who's to say? Because like I liked Winfrey in the Saints game versus Rodgers or Toure, but in the Chiefs game when he had the most run and able to secure that spot, he was beating corners off the break off his route, and then would allow them to get back into coverage and break up a pass or contest the catch. So it might just be little things like that. And then since he is a rookie, sort of a development project, replacing what Winfrey was, right? Because like that's what he was the past few years, was a development project, and that development clearly didn't work out. Travis Fulgham, I never honestly expected to be on the roster unless there was some sort of disaster at the bottom between Toure, Winfrey, and Rodgers. Because I just think the Packers like keeping more of their own guys they know rather than vets who are, I'm not going to say unproven because he has gotten run, he has touchdowns, he has yards, and is a veteran. But he's somewhat of a known idea.
You know, I have an interesting note on that. I didn't expect this, so I believe he has three full, or quote unquote full, 3 NFL seasons. Bill Huber of Packer Central reported earlier today they're actually hoping to bring him back to the practice squad. Which
really?
Yeah, which maybe they're hoping by next year or later this year he can be a player who is more familiar to them. But that intrigued me because, like you said, we thought of Fulgham, and I think a lot of people do, as a vet, but still only the 3 years of experience. So if that works out, that'd be interesting. I think we can probably, after we go through all these position groups, talk about if anyone were worried about not making the practice squad or anything else. Fun stat I saw, I forget who, so sorry for not crediting, but since Taysom Hill year, I believe there was also like a defensive lineman to the Cowboys or something. But I think that was 2017 when the Packers, he didn't make the cut. That's the last year, I should say, someone got claimed off waivers after cut day from the Packers. It's been a while since they haven't gotten their guys that they wanted to the practice squad. So we'll see if that changes, but I do think, and way later we'll cover this, some pretty interesting players, intriguing, fair to say, around the league were also cut, probably more so than most of the undrafted guys the Packers fans like, but aren't known commodities like an O.J. Howard. So we'll chat more about the logistics and practice squad stuff because, as people say, this is bigger than a 53-man roster. Cut day doesn't mean these guys aren't going to be Packers. There is just a risk, though.
Right. To transition, unless you have anything else on the wide receivers.
No.
to transition from Packers having nobody picked up off their cut list in 5 years or so, that might come to an end this year as the Packers made two cuts to their offensive line grouping with Caleb Jones and Michael Manette. And I think Caleb Jones is probably the most sought after cut player they're going to have, considering how well he was playing. I think a lot of the Packers beat writers had him on the 53-man roster. I think I'm not going to say all of them, but when I saw he got cut, there was a lot of people like Zach Cruz and again Peter Bukowski that were not sad but disappointed to see that he didn't make it. Again, practice squad candidate, but with considering how difficult it is to find and develop offensive linemen in the NFL, like go ask the Bears. It's tough. They haven't had a reliable line in a few years. Like I could see them taking a flyer on them, or whatever team needs a lineman that has somewhat proven in the preseason that he can play and that the tools are there, right? So they cut Caleb Jones and Michael Manette and instead choose to keep Rasheed Walker, their draft pick, and the big man. I think he's like 6'7", 350 if I'm not mistaken. He's a large offensive lineman to say the least. So it's nice to see um, him make it, considering they did draft him. But uh, I think it was somebody else on the beat and made a great point that the Packers kept 10 offensive linemen, which calls into consideration that they're a little worried about Bakhtiari's and Jenkins's his health to start the year for sure, and maintained health throughout the season.
10.5. Also, special teamer in love with the Coco made the roster as well. Right. Was it Jack? Yeah, Jack Coco.
Yep.
But not, I don't know if really counts as an offensive lineman, but I'm guessing in an emergency could probably play some offensive line considering he's a long snapper. So, right. Blue Wire friend Andy Herman, host of the Pack a Day podcast, would tell you to check it out, but you probably are already very familiar with that if you're listening to Talk of the Tundra. But Andy Herman compiled 53-man roster projections from himself, Rob Demovsky, Ryan Wood, Bill Huber, and Matt Schneidman before cut day really started. So the upsets here, Winfrey was on 4 or 5. A few players we'll get to in a second, but Caleb Jones was on 3 of 5. So honestly, thought he would be a little higher given the tools, physical and like skill wise. But certainly, I don't think, again, that's probably, we're going to say this a lot, not stunning that he was released, but certainly one of those players where you would love to see him stick on the practice squad, because I think pretty clearly he would be the next guy up if there was some sort of an injury or issue with any of the other offensive linemen throughout the season. So that is probably going to be our biggest fingers crossed, just given, I think, some real upside, which isn't always true for guys, even if we do like them on cut day, who we're hoping to see on the practice squad.
Right. And I think that's it's such a big thing to keep in mind is since they expanded the practice squad size, that a lot of these guys are going to be back, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. No, I'm pretty sure the practice squad's now like 16.
Oh no, I was saying like 3% of players are actually claimed on waivers.
No, just like size and just size.
No,
in general.
yeah. No, we're saying different things. Like, so we're agreeing. I'm saying only like league wide, only 3% of players like change team on waivers after cut day, because obviously either you cut one too many on cut day or you have to make another move. And teams, I don't know, teams like to be pretty set unless they see a pretty intriguing upgrade out there, or something happens that makes them move.
Right, I'd say intriguing and significant upgrade.
Yeah. You have to feel like the player is, well better than someone you have. Right.
Like again, Brian Bulaga comes to mind when that happened. Like he was a known commodity. The Chargers knew what was happening with Brian Bulaga when he got cut from the Packers and then ultimately signed with them. So that's one of the examples. Doesn't happen very often. So but the practice squad being 16 means, quick math, 9 players are not coming back unless they decide to sign an outside player, which a few special teamers got cut. I saw there's one out of New York, off the Giants, that was pretty good just from going through Twitter, but we'll see. And hopefully Caleb Jones makes it back, because you really can't have enough offensive line depth in the NFL. Like it seems that they drop like flies sometimes and they come in waves. And Lord knows that the offensive linemen are in the trenches battling every single snap. So there's you can always have an extra one, really good one that knows your shit. So
Yeah, especially when both of your premier tackles are dealing or coming back from, I should say, very serious injuries.
right.
Then
Anything else for you? Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say then the defensive line kind
Yeah.
of in common with the offensive line, and that seventh round picks from this season end up making it over other guys battling. So Rasheed Walker on the offensive line makes it over Caleb Jones. On the defensive line, Jonathan Ford, a player we didn't really talk about, ends up making the 53. And this also the defensive line is similar to the wide receiver or the running back room, because two players we thought were maybe battling for a spot both get cut in Jack Heflin and Chris Slayton. So,
Yep.
this is one where I think it's tough because I just don't remember much about Ford from the preseason.
Yeah, neither
And
do I.
Devonte Wyatt, obviously going to make the team. First round pick, not
Yeah.
in the same position as these guys, but it is tough to square because like Heflin and Slayton were good in preseason, and that's
Yeah.
why it was iffy. Like tools are on display. That's a longer term picture. So you
Right.
feel for those two guys who I don't know how much better they could have played, but there just wasn't a spot, or at least right now. Like we talked about, certainly I think practice squad a possibility for both Heflin and
Right.
Slayton. But what do you think about the defensive line moves?
I think it's hard to swallow Heflin because of what he showed when what we saw. Like that we talked about it last episode and we'll talk about it again. That blow up of the running back on third and short was incredible. Fourth and short. Or no, those third and short.
His
Was
third, I
incredible.
think third,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was incredible. It was a great play of shooting the gap where it was presented to him. He didn't like beat anybody, he didn't bulldoze anybody to get there, but he didn't miss a tackle. And that's very important when you get to the backfield. Like if you're gonna get into the backfield and disrupt the play, finish the play. And he did. And so when it comes to showing out and doing what he's supposed to do, he did it. Like you really couldn't ask too much of him outside of what he did and what he displayed. And so again, we're gonna say it with all these guys, another great practice squad candidate. And when, I won't say if, because it always happens, when someone gets hurt on the defensive line, I'm sure he'll be one of the first ones up to fill that spot and hopefully get his chance to stay on the roster versus go back and forth.
Yeah, definitely think, absolute
Yeah.
longest view would be a guy you would expect to have a really good chance if he is on the practice squad all year to then make the 53 next year. But
Yep.
we'll see what happens there. Fun stat, as I mentioned, the seventh rounders from this draft making the cut. The entire 11-player rookie class for the Packers this year all made the first 53. Shouts to
Yep.
Wes Hodkowitz. Sorry if I got that wrong, Wes, on Packers.com, who included that note.
Yep.
And I want to give a shout out here. Really good post/look at the cuts and who made it and everything on Packers.com. Really great, useful stuff there that we certainly will be referencing as we go through. Where do you want to bounce next? I think
Before we bounce on, I want to talk about, or I want to like expound a little bit on
yeah.
a lot of the reason Heflin didn't make it is because of their depth,
Yeah.
right? The Packers have a really interesting roster right now. Is that where they have depth, they have it. Like they're really deep on offensive line. They're really deep on defensive line. Wide receivers, that if I'm not mistaken, they kept 8. Is that right? 7. Sorry, they
Seven,
kept
technically, yeah.
7 receivers, 2 or 10 offensive linemen. So ideally, you're going 3 strings deep at wide receiver. You have a backup at ideally each position except for center. I think Josh Myers was truly the only center they count. The rest were guards and tackles. And then the linebacking core is again very,
I was
very
inside
deep.
linebacker especially. Chris
Yeah.
Barnes is a guy who it's always just in flashes, but every time I see a Chris Barnes play, I go, "Oh, that was a nice play." And I think we both liked McDuffie in the preseason too. He made the roster, so
Right.
definitely think they're interior linebackers. That's like You don't see that many groups of
Right.
four that are that solid these days, especially when it's really hard to play linebacker,
Right.
interior linebacker in the NFL.
And so the Packers have depth at those positions, right? But the other side of that coin is that they don't have depth at some other places, like the the secondary, cornerback, and safety. They're really thin at, along with the edge. And so to jump now to our next talking point with the secondary, Sean Davis cut due to a knee injury that I think was sustained and sent either, I'm pretty sure, between now and the Chiefs game. If I'm not mistaken, he played in the Chiefs game. And so he's cut or waived in under the injury clause. And as such, my biggest player I wanted to see make the roster, Micah Abernathy, makes the initial roster, I should say. USFL player who was, I think, tied for ninth, if I'm not mistaken, in tackles in the USFL this past spring. And Ty, if you have it up, or if I can find it quick and we can install the West Hod tweet from how many days he had
I think it
between
was
making this
26
one.
days.
Yeah.
This was shared again in the Discord. Yep, West Hod. Oh, sorry, 20 days. 26 was the prior record. So the stat here is the fewest days on the Packers before cut day and making the roster. So this is significant because, as we talked about, NFL teams don't like to upset the apple cart, right? You got your guys, you like your guys. Maybe you bring in some players late, and it's just such an uphill battle for them. The injury certainly helps, but Abernathy, according to Wes Hod, this is how he put it, which is smart because the Packers have played football for 100 years, couldn't find a player without an accrued NFL season who made the 53 out of camp in less time than Micah Abernathy's 20 days. So basically less than 3 weeks. He comes to Green Bay, impresses enough, takes advantage of the opportunity, and now he's on the 53-man roster.
Yep. And I think that's just one, it's an incredible story. Well, I'll put it this way. I hope I don't see him as much as we need to for injuries and such, but I'd really like to see him succeed when he's given chances because I think he's a baller. Between the Saints game where he had the interception and getting held on a pass interference call that didn't get called in the Chiefs game where he almost would have intercepted it and probably took it to the house for like 98 yards. He's got an eye for the ball, and he's just a ball hawk and hits with purpose and makes tackles. And I think that that's really what this defense needs. I watched way too many Dom Capers era defenses that did not like to wrap up when they tackled. It was just, I'll hit you with my shoulder and hope you don't keep your balance. And I think that's the biggest difference. That's, I guess, easier to spot in this defense is that they like to wrap up and actually make tackles. And that's right where Micah Abernathy slots in. So really glad he made it. Yeah. I really hope he gets some runs in some either blowouts, hopefully going our way, and can show out that he belongs in the NFL and earned his chance rather than just making it versus because of an injury.
This strikes me as a guy who could make a lot of hay on special teams too for some of those same, maybe not the eye for the ball, but wrapping up, being able to execute open field tackles, like that's gunner stuff. And I think certainly, again, I still think Sean Davis seemed like he was pretty in line. Always unfortunate to lose a spot due to injury, and hopefully he's able to recover and bounce back better than ever. But Micah Abernathy certainly feels like a guy who could fill some of that special teams void and help turn that unit around, which honestly could be a bigger contribution than being the third safety on defense if he can be one of the best few special teams players this year. We'll see. We'll see how much he plays there, but you'd certainly assume he would have a spot. I like your point about just the depth at different positions because it is a good way to look at it. Like if Jack Heflin, and it's a hilarious visual, but if Jack Heflin is a cornerback, I think he pretty clearly makes it, right? And obviously he'd have to be a much different player. But, is a cornerback who shows out like he did at defensive line, it's an easier battle for him. And I think, the Packers, their first three corners, it looks great with Jair, Stokes, and then Rasul Douglas. But then Keyshawn Nixon, Shamar John Charles, just like, say unknowns to be generous. So yeah, if there was a guy like a Heflin at corner position,
Yeah.
that maybe then it's easier to make the roster. Yeah, defensive tackle, offensive line, just stack positions for Green Bay.
Right. And I think that's the secondary is a place where they just can't afford an injury this year. Like like a long injury. Obviously you're gonna have injuries week to week where someone may sit out for a game or out for a quarter, etc. But yeah, the secondaries is thin. But like you said, Jair, Eric Stokes, Russell Douglas, and then that's safety, Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. Defense that's tough. And so I think their nickel and dime defense is going to be really interesting, whether they like who is their nickel corner or who is their dime corner, or if they throw somebody one of their better inside linebackers that are good at downfield coverage as their nickel guy or as their dime corner in quotes. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see uh how this defense plays throughout the year and how they navigate these injuries because there's going to be injuries. That's we'll knock on all the wood we can, but it's just the way football is, right? It's a tough sport to not get have some sort of significant injury in every year. So anybody else you want to talk about on the defensive side that got cut? I don't think I do. Everybody else. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Chris Slayton. Just like it's tough. He'll make the practice squad, I think. And
Yeah.
again, like Heflin, will probably be back next year for his chance to make the team.
Yeah, I think, I guess outside linebackers, Kobe Jones and Ladarius Hamilton. Again, it's such a stat group with Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary headlining it. I don't have any specific take here, but just, some cuts had to be made. You're not going to bring 7 outside linebackers into the
Right.
season. So those 2 guys don't make the cut. And then inside linebackers, already mentioned Ty Summers, also Ray Wilborn there. Again, not anything too specific. I think, these are really kind of the minutia of moves and certainly nothing too surprising there. I do want to talk about special teams. I told
Hmm.
you I had a fun stat. So this is actually probably should have done this earlier because it's some have said the biggest news, true news for the Packers out of cut day was that Mason Crosby is off the pup list. So
Yep.
expected to continue to not miss any starts ever and
Ever.
play against the Minnesota Vikings on that
Hmm.
opening week, which means unfortunately for him, Ramiz Ahmed was released as part of the cuts. Perfect with the Packers in the preseason, did not miss a kick. And as you mentioned with Abernathy, kind of some fun USFL storylines this year. That also is where Ahmed kind of made a name for himself with the Pittsburgh Maulers. And noteworthily enough, we are talking about the record holder for longest USFL field goal. That is Ahmed. He made a 61-yarder against the New Jersey Generals. Longest
Interesting.
USFL kick in history. Also, one of these guys who was at like his 3rd college, didn't play football at any of them until he walked on at a tryout and first just did kickoff. So really cool story here, and I
Yeah.
will certainly be rooting for Ramiz Ahmed and hope that he's honestly would be a great Packer squad guy for the Packers or practice squad if nobody does pick him up, which I
Yeah.
don't know how bad teams need kickers. He was
Yeah.
impressive, but that would be a great backup if Crosby did have another issue, considering he came in and made all the kicks.
Right. I couldn't tell you how often teams keep kickers on their practice squad because
That's true.
you
There is a budgeting issue from the Packers side there.
right, and it's mostly just like how often does your kicker get hurt?
Yeah.
And that you need a practice squad kicker and that you can't just go sign a kicker.
Yeah, there's always so many, oh, that's a solid kicker. We'll bring him in.
Right, just somebody who you know has been around the league for a few years and just bring him in for a tryout during the week and let whoever wins the tryout kicking for the
Right.
injured replacement. So if they keep him, that may be fine because let's back up. If they keep him, I think they're way more worried about Crosby's injury than they lead on. Crosby's maintained through camp that he's expected to play week 1 and he's on slate to do that. But I think if they keep Ahmed on the practice squad, I think that shows a little more hesitancy in their ability to go sign a kicker and that they want him ready in case something does crop up with Crosby's injury. Uh, learning moment for me. I did not know Mason Crosby was only 37. I
Yeah, I
thought he was
know.
I thought he was closer to 45 than he was 30.
I looked up his age because I was going to counter, and I just didn't think about the limited practice squad spots. So yeah, maybe it's not worth keeping the kicker, but maybe they keep him because they see him as a Crosby replacement down the line. But
Right.
kickers play till
They're
early to mid
45.
40s really easily. So I don't know if they're going to keep him on the practice squad for 8 years to
Right.
replace Mason Crosby. Hopefully he can continue kicking
I
well for
think
that long.
I think my misunderstanding in how old Crosby was is comes from the fact that he's had a full head of gray hair for like 4 years.
Yeah, it's
Like he doesn't
been
look like he's had if unless again COVID time kind of puts us into perspective of I don't I couldn't tell you last time I saw Mason Crosby with a full head of brown hair like he had, but it seems like he's had gray hair for a very long time. And so
this might be a kicker thing.
he turns 38 on Sunday, I believe, Saturday.
Oh, good!
So yeah,
Happy early
Saturday.
birthday, Mason Crosby. That's fun.
Happy early birthday to Mason Crosby.
I
Please be healthy.
I think this is a kicker thing because I saw a video of Justin Tucker getting his son a picture with Lamar Jackson. It was very cute, but Justin Tucker looked pretty old in the video. I just looked it up. He's 32. He turns 33 in November. So maybe
Yeah.
something about kicking. Maybe all the stress. I don't know.
I'll say it's
Maybe
probably
it
all the
ages
stress.
him. Yeah.
All the
Um,
stress and all the repetitive movements they do is just it wears on them.
Yeah, but good news for Mason Crosby for sure that the injury did end up hopefully not being as long lasting as we might have feared. One last
Right.
thing we should probably touch on, although certainly I wouldn't call it a surprise. Packers going with two quarterbacks this year. Danny Etling did not make the roster.
Yep.
We've seen them roster three before. Personally, I find that an affront to team building because
Yep.
just can't imagine you have three guys that are really all worth keeping and kind of
Yeah.
similar to kicker, right? Like there's NFL capable quarterbacks. Well, there's end of the roster capable quarterbacks bouncing around everywhere. Obviously,
Right.
not a bunch of guys you'd want to play, but a bunch of guys that you'd probably feel as good as Danny Etling if you have to put them in the game.
Right. I think the base argument works sort of the same because of like what you said that there's always I don't know why, but Jason Campbell like pops into my mind for end of the bench quarterback so you can just pick up off the street. But I think having a practice squad quarterback helps a lot for your backup
It's a good call.
because like they're managing the game, right? Like they need to know the offense and they need to know the situations in which Matt LaFleur's offense runs in order to succeed. And bringing somebody in off the street who only has 4 5 days to get to know the offense versus Danny Etling, who if he does come back to the practice squad, he likely will, knows the offense and has had the offseason to look at it. He's going through it in camp. He went through it in the preseason and has all this invested time to pick up where Rodgers and Love, again, knock on wood, would leave off should they get injured. So it's not something you really want to think about, but I think if that worst case scenario happens, they'd keep Etling on the practice squad and have him be probably the starter and then bring in somebody off the street to compete against him just to make sure that his talent is above what they can get off the street and that the difference in knowing the playbook and ability that gap isn't significant between Danny Etling and whoever they'd sign. So,
Well, and in a less extreme scenario too, he would also like if Jordan Love missed some time with whatever, he
yeah,
would be it would be preferable to bring him up from the practice squad versus trying to bring somebody in and have them again. You hope to not see any QB injuries, much less both guys, but you
right,
certainly if there is one or the other hurt, you do want someone you trust there to step in case something were to happen with the other one. Or again, a positive
right,
blowout. That'd be a fun time to see Danny Etling.
right, exactly. So, anything else on the Packers roster you want to talk? We're going to talk about a little bit about what happened across the league.
I don't think so. I think again, the two running backs thing we'll see on there, and
Yeah,
maybe we can touch on some pretty good running backs released around the league.
yeah.
Do you think there's any chance that they would look to add one like at this stage in the season?
So no,
Yeah.
because the keeping the two running backs part is problematic because Kylan Hill is hurt. Kylan Hill is hurt right now. He's on the physically unable to perform list, so I think he has to miss the first 4 weeks of the season. I think once he gets back, they'll keep him and they'll cut somebody, probably somewhere where they have depth. So I'd probably first look at inside linebacker or offensive line. But um, I think once Kylan Hill is healthy, he'll be the third running back. And so it's it's a tough thing to navigate, right? Like we don't want to have depth issues at running back when we have the two we have right now. But I think that they won't go out and sign a running back off the street because they have Taylor and Goodson who they can sign to the practice squad and then bring Kylan Hill back as the third stringer once he's healthy.
I think I think I agree there. I don't think it's part of some grand move. Especially, I'm glad you mentioned that. Forgot to mention Hill on the PUP list currently.
Yeah, so I also forgot to mention it. So
yeah, so that I think definitely played a role in only quote unquote only having two, which maybe it's not even true. So yeah, hopefully they can just get through those first 4 weeks with the running back room healthy, and then bring Hill back in at least 4 weeks, I guess. Should say.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
So, other big moves across the NFL. I think the first big one of the day was the Saints having to pay the Pied Piper for all of their salary cap jumping and trading Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles for a 5th-round pick next year in 2023 and a 6th-round pick in 2024.
They didn't even get 2 picks. They moved up from 6 to 7. They had to send a 7 with Chauncey
that's right.
over to the Eagles. You know, for people who I don't want to get into the whole thing now because we're recording late at night, but I am technically a Saints fan. Coming back into the fold with the Packers here for the pod, and honestly, I've gravitated toward them over the last few years anyway. But just like their 2 trades, when you look at them together with the Eagles, and I tweeted about this, but this summer, the one before the draft, they literally handed the Eagles the picks to get A.J. Brown. They handed the Eagles Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And for their trouble, they got they got 2 firsts, basically, that they used on Trevor Penning and to move up for Chris Olave. And the Eagles also got a future first and a future second. So the Saints get, we'll see how Trevor Penning, if he's hurt now, that's not on the Saints. But if he can stop fighting teammates long enough to be a good player, and Olave, he might be good. We'll see.
I think he's going to be very good.
We'll see. He might be for sure. But they both of those guys need to be good for all that the Saints gave up. So
no, absolutely.
Just a wild bit of team building from New Orleans there.
It is.
Makes me glad I'm going to be more tuned into the Packers is my last thought on that. I don't love the direction New Orleans is heading in.
Right. I do think that it is comeuppance for all of the the salary gymnastics that they did to get their cap manageable. So you can only, I guess, play around that for so long until you need to make some changes, and clearly that time has come. So, but yeah, that was sort of the first big news that trade had happened.
Yeah, and I think the real takeaway there from a Packers perspective, get my Saints stuff out of here, my baggage, my Andrew Snyder baggage. The Eagles, though, are going to be a problem, I think. Yeah. Like a problem for other teams. The NFC certainly much lighter than the AFC, but I think you kind of have to, in my opinion, pencil in Philly as one of the teams that, should be pretty damn good this season that the Packers will have to contend with. I thought before this they were the best in the NFC East. I think the Cowboys didn't do anything. The other 2 teams kind of So certainly seems like the Eagles are poised to get back to the playoffs again after they did last year too, and be more dangerous there.
Yeah, the Eagles, I think that division will be an Eagles-Cowboys race to see who wins it. I'm not mistaken. The NFC East hasn't had a repeat division winner in forever.
Yeah, it's a really long time.
It's a really long time. One since 2004.
That's wild.
Yeah, since 2004, which was like Donovan McNabb's Eagles.
And
there has not been
3 Super Bowl winning teams in that span.
Yeah, Giants twice,
2 Giants
and the Eagles once.
And an Eagles. So how do you, I mean, okay, the Eagles only won once, but how if you're the Giants, you win 2 Super Bowls in that span, but not win the division in back-to-back years?
Wild card.
That's
It was wild card. It was wild card both times.
It was I was gonna say you could do it without winning the division in back-to-back years, but for them, they really didn't need to win it at all.
Yeah, it was 2007. They beat the Patriots the first time.
Was it 7 and what was
11.
the second one? 11. It was 11.
Well, then, I'm sorry.
No, Packers were 11. Saints were 10.
12.
No.
So
yeah,
the Packers won the Super Bowl February 2011.
2010 season.
2010 season.
Yeah, Saints won 2009 season, but in 2010. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
So, I guess no. It looks like the Giants did win in their division 2011. So wild card in the NFC East winner. But either which way, that to get back on track here.
Yeah.
That division is volatile. They don't like being consistent. They don't like having. That's crazy.
I might put in a future just for the Commanders to win, just because that's how that division works.
Exactly. I don't believe in Carson Wentz, but that wouldn't be a bad bet, just based on history.
Yeah.
And so
other big names.
Yeah.
Cut right out of it. O.J. Howard, tight end, cut by the Bills. So what was there any Mike Gesicki resolution besides the Dolphins just keeping him? I saw a couple people floated him as a potential shocking cut. He was not cut, I don't think. Doesn't look like he's going to get traded. But there was, O.J. Howard is a pretty good tight end on the market.
Yeah.
Again, this doesn't feel like the Packers, unless they're forced to because of an injury or something, will go after any of these players. I don't know if they're that degree, but O.J. Howard, one who will, I think, get some interest around the NFL.
Right. He was victim to an offense that was allergic to throwing to their tight ends in Tampa. And he was hoping to find a new home in Buffalo and didn't. So I think he'll find somewhere like
tight ends not named Gronk.
Tight ends not named Gronk, right? But he was there before Brady and Gronk too. So like he wasn't helped by Jameis and wasn't helped by the previous coaching staff there in his development. But he's talented. He's big. He can play tight end, and so. The injury didn't help him last year when I think he tore his Achilles, if I'm not mistaken, but again, might be wrong. But he'll find some run. He'll find some run somewhere. And I don't think it'll be the Packers. They're 4 deep at tight end right now.
Speaking of big and talented, 2021 17th overall pick, Alex Leatherwood, released by the Raiders. Pretty disastrous rookie season. They had to move him from tackle to guard. Really just was not good.
Yeah.
Decent run blocker from what I heard. I believe credit the PFF NFL podcast guys for this, specifically the Daily. I think they talked about this. But okay run blocker, really bad pass blocker, which is really rough considering I think he was always on the right side of the line, and you really shouldn't be able to be that bad of a pass blocker at right guard. But still, the Raiders overdrafted him. Still like a second round consensus prospect when he was picked.
Yeah.
Would not surprise me for a team to take a flyer on him. I saw this was just like a Twitter speculation thing, but would be like a kind of interesting like shoot move from the Packers to bring him into their offensive line system and see if they can reclaim him. But I just
practice squad. Yeah.
I don't know if there would be any room on the 53 given how poor he was and how deep they are at that position.
They would promote Caleb Jones before they brought him up from the practice squad should they sign him. But yeah, I think what made me laugh today is Ian Rappaport tried to be like, I guess, I don't want to say speculative, that's not the right word. Tried to make jokes essentially with the news that Alex Leatherwood got waived. And he says, quote, they tried to trade him to everyone, got 32 no's. And somebody said, all right, who said no twice? Because obviously 32 is the entire NFL. Yeah. The Raiders didn't say no.
Yeah.
So clearly a slip up in the math, but like the idea that they called somebody twice, like, no, we already said no.
You forgot us. Well,
right.
Same situation, a guy who actually didn't get cut. Did you see I forget who tweeted it. Somebody said the Jalen Reagor trade buzz was heating up. It was not heated. He's still on the Eagles.
It was not heated, and I think I saw somebody say that they the Packers could trade for Jalen Rager for a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos.
I my
So
my
then the beat writers got into a little discussion on what is the best Dorito flavor. It's Cool Ranch. That is the end of this discussion. Go on.
Yeah, what's the spicy one? The less common one?
Spicy nacho is better
Pretty
than
good.
nacho cheese.
Yeah.
Nacho cheese is like the third best,
Nacho cheese
but
is a little kid flavor. When I was
yep,
8, I loved
that's right.
nacho cheese, but
That's right.
you evolve as a human.
Getting the Dorito, the Cool Ranch Dorito that was stuck in the seasoning part too
Oh,
long, where it's just like totally coated in all the seasoning is like a
I
top
don't
tier
like
food.
that. That's probably what I didn't like them as a kid. Real story. I ate a expired Baby Ruth one time. I haven't eaten one since. The nuts go to Baby Ruth, and that's a bad time. But my take on Jalen Rager was trade buzz is heating up. Means teams are calling and offering or asking for worse picks from Philly to take him off of their hands. Like
Yeah.
that's the trade buzz. Like, we'll just take a sixth and you can trade us Jalen Rager. But obviously he was not moved.
So yeah, that's what's still confounding about the NFL and like pieces that they do for trades. Like players get traded for just late round picks
Chauncey
all
Gardner
the time.
Johnson.
Right, exactly.
Like,
That's
I
a
understand that
perfect example.
they maybe can't pay him, but I still think there should be more value than basically a fifth and moving up around at the very end of the draft.
Right.
A couple of skill position guys. I don't even know if these guys will all find spots, but Josh Gordon, who all the reports were really positive out of Kansas City, but
Yeah.
not positive enough for him to make the team.
I don't know
Sony
where
Michelle.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
No, yeah, just Sony Michelle. I think maybe the most interesting running back. A lot of running backs. That's the thing about the running back environment now in the NFL. So many guys get released who you're like, oh, I remember he had this season, or he carried my fantasy league for a year, in 2017. And sad, these guys out of jobs now. And Duke Johnson cut by the Bills, another one of those guys who it's like, oh,
Yep.
Duke Johnson, but
Recognizable
maybe,
name, not
yeah,
so much talented. Still talented, doesn't have a spot on some rosters anymore.
yeah.
But yeah, to go through that list, I don't think Josh Gordon gets somewhere signed right away. If there's a significant injury to a team's core, he might get signed, but it's tough to predict where he's going to go, what he's going to do, because it's there. It's I think every team is taking a flyer on him, essentially, not literally, but figuratively. Sony Michelle might get it run somewhere, like you had mentioned before we started recording. Really good year last year, couple 100 yards, I think just short of 1,000, 4 touchdowns. So he's still capable of producing. Just, I think you said you got cut from Miami, who has a loaded uh running back room with Myles Gaskin, Chase Edmonds, the former Arizona Cardinal, and Raheem Mostert, who is the old 49ers backup. So they're going to have a extreme running back by committee down there, and I think he was just the last one cut. So Duke Johnson, I think he's near the end of his career. We'll see.
I think probably most likely that Michelle ends up being the first guy teams who have an injury call. I'm not sure if he's going to get a spot as early as this week, but like the Ravens situation from last year, he's probably the first guy teams look to bring in. So would expect he does end up on a roster before we get too deep into the season.
I had a thought pop into my head. Is Adrian Peterson still on the team?
I'm going to say yes. But I could be wrong.
Play like Jeopardy music or something
While you
here.
look, 2 Vikings who got cut.
Not, it looks like.
Oh, he's not.
Not according to NFL.com. Doesn't say a player thing or anything.
So that might be one again where it's like a COVID time thing, because I remember thinking, oh, he's still playing. I didn't expect that, but I guess not so much anymore. Yeah, he barely played last year across 2 teams, rushed for less than 100 total yards.
He also got picked up for a domestic violence incident in February, so he might be done.
Fine by me.
Fine by me.
Last 2 names on this. Let's say I've got an SB Nation list of the biggest names on cut day. James Dator, so shout out to James. A couple of Vikings, Kellen Mond, who, when your team has to trade a late round pick to get, I'm blanking on his name, from the Rams backup quarterback, formerly, I believe.
Brett Hundley?
No. Maybe it wasn't. No, I'm totally.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Ravens. You said Rams.
Walford. Wofford?
Lost me.
I'll look it up. But when your
right.
team has to trade for, they draft you decent, third round pick like 2 years ago, and they have to trade a late round pick just to have a decent backup quarterback. It's probably not a good sign for your long term shot of making the league. So sucks for Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
And then Wyatt Davis, more interesting probably, an offensive guard, another 2021 third round pick for the Vikings. So I think, again, Wyatt Davis, interesting, but certainly not a position the Packers are going to need to bring in.
Right. Anything else to talk about, Ty? I think we went through a lot of the cuts today, a lot of the big news. With
it's Nick Mullins. Don't know what the name.
Oh, Nick Mullins. Yeah.
They traded for Nick Mullins.
Yeah. I like the Wofford name sounds familiar, but that's a college, so maybe that's why my brain's like light bulbing. But yeah, Nick Mullins was the third stringer that got some run, but he's like surprised everybody by being somewhat decent. But yeah. Anything else you want to talk about? Because you ran through a lot today.
Yeah, I think, feeling the same way about the Packers roster. Good group. Yeah. I mean, we still have the wide receiver questions. I think we won't, in large part because of the Christian Watson injury, doesn't play at all in the preseason. We'll need to see some real games to have answers. We'll get some stuff from practice, I'm sure. Yep. Great beat reporter situation there. But really excited for week 1. And can we tease what we're planning for later this week a little bit, in addition to any updates on roster moves?
Yes. Before we do that, I want to give a quick shout out to all the Packers beat writers. They do a really good job. Like, it also is really cool as like a side note of how much they like each other. It seems like they all have so much fun on Twitter. Like, give each other. I think it was Andy Herman again, who was going through all the cuts today and was like sort of saying where each one came from. So like, obviously respect each other. They always do really great work. Again, really great work for Cut Day and keeping all of us fans up to date. So thank you to you guys for doing that. If you are listening, we appreciate it.
Yeah. Come on the show too, please.
Yeah, come on the show, please. Andy, we're talking to you, buddy. But yeah, later this week we will do a preview of the Packers season. We'll go through the schedule, take a look at the games that intrigue us most. There is a Sunday night football game against the Eagles in there. So I'm not mistaken, it was Sunday.
List.
It is Sunday, yeah. Sunday on NBC. So it's week 12, right after Thanksgiving. So we'll go through the schedule and what we sort of predict. We'll do a season prediction and just talk about themes that we hope to see and expectations.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that one, to look ahead to this season in more detail now that we know the 53-man group that the Packers are going to be rolling with. And by that time, we'll also have a pretty good idea of the practice squad too, although now that we're past cut day, I'm not sure how much cut day stuff will come up. Hopefully not too much, because it usually means something bad happened. But yeah, excited to shift focus now to more starters and look ahead to the season, which should be an interesting one, to be absolutely safe with word choice.
Right. It'll be something. Is what we'll go with. Yeah, I'm eager for it to start. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, 11 days until the season starts for the Packers. Obviously, the Bills, I think, face the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. That's the Thursday night game.
That's a surprisingly good opening game.
I know. I'm really excited for week 1. I'm gonna double check that, because I don't want to lead our listeners astray.
Don't misinform.
Lead you astray to make us so excited for the opening.
Waiting now
night
for
game.
Jets Giants Subway Series to open up.
It is Buffalo at LA. So it was LA for sure, because they were Super Bowl winners. But yeah, it is Buffalo. So that'll be a really good possible Super Bowl preview. So, but hopefully not. Hopefully it's Packers one. So thank you guys for listening. Before we go, we do have a review, I'm told.
Yeah, I sent it to you. You got it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's from I'll read it first, but I'm pretty sure it's _R_E_J_. I'm going to call him Reg.
Yeah.
That's wrong. Please come to the Discord and yell at me and tell me I pronounced your name wrong. 5-star review. Please go to gspn.info, leave your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Send it to us, and we will read it on air. Just like Regis here, who says, another stellar pod from the GSPN team, widely considered the best podcast crew in the business. They're already my go-to source for Bucks and Brewers info, so I know this is going to be the best and most entertaining way to keep up with the pack. Thank you, Reg, for your words of encouragement and your review. We really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to read more of these 5-star reviews.
Yeah, it's always fun when people get goofy with them, but I will say, as you now know, the warmth of a very nice 5-star review, it's kind of unmatched. So we'll need some fun and goofy ones, though. We can't let Numac's ego get out of control.
What's wrong with that?
Rookie of the year campaign here. I guess battling Andrew, although he seems like a grizzled vet already with what the Brewers have put him through this season. Quick reminder to check out Talk of the Tundra. This is Talk of the Tundra. Quick reminder to check out Cruising for a Bruising for your Milwaukee Brewers coverage as they chase a wild card spot. Things are getting heated. And if you're really a big Numac guy or girl, person, you'll want to check out the next episode. We're expecting you to debut. Is that secret? Can I say that?
I don't think it's public, but if you're listening on Wednesday, you can listen to me tomorrow, probably on Thursday. We talk about the recap of the Pirates and the Brewer series. For the love of God, I hope they have a series win tomorrow. I went to the game Tuesday night, and the vibes were the opposite of immaculate, horrendous, some might say. But I'm really hoping to get my $6 ticket and $6 food voucher.
Water. Your free water. Can't beat that.
Check the concessions. $5.39 for a water at Miller Park. Tune in to Cruising for the Bruising to hear me yell about Mark Antanasio and ownership.
There we go. Who wouldn't want to check that out? Of course, we've got the Bucks Pods, Eurostep Podcast Network, Bucks Feed with Eurostep and Win in 6. And make time for this. Our Everything Else Pod, new show on The Rehearsal, should be up now. Andrew and Adam doing a ton there, but there will be plenty of other stuff. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to Talk of the Tundra. We've got a lot of stuff. Go to gspn.info to keep track of it all. But that's all we've got for today. So Numac, sign us off, buddy.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll be back at you with another episode later this week. And thank you, Ty.
Thank you.